Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India NewsHour, India's voice to the world. I'm Amritpal Singh. Coming up in the next 1 hour. After the Putin meeting, Ukraine-Zelenskyy to meet Trump in Washington, India appreciates progress made in Alaska talks. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi to visit India for border talks on Monday. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar holds talks with visiting South Korean Foreign Minister in New Delhi, discusses new opportunities in artificial intelligence, semiconductors, clean energy and defense. Over 300 dead as heavy rains trigger flash floods in northwestern Pakistan. Scores still missing in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And the festival of Krishna Janmashtami celebrated across the globe with devotion, traditional fervor and gaiety. A highly anticipated summit between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin on Friday yielded no agreement to resolve or pause Moscow's war in Ukraine, though both leaders described the talks as productive. Russia TV correspondent Igor Piskunov has sent us this special report from Alaska. Take a listen.
I think it's fair to say that this was quite an interesting and unexpected culmination of this historic meeting, the first one in years between Presidents Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump here in Alaska, in Anchorage, at a U.S. military base. Vladimir Putin, by the way, today became the first Russian leader to set foot on Alaskan soil, and I think that was among the issues, the factors which created this positive atmosphere of companionship. The way Vladimir Putin was greeted here with fighter jets accompanying his aircraft, then both presidents simultaneously exiting their planes and then walking towards one another, shaking hands, having a small conversation without anybody, without translators or aides. Then suddenly Donald Trump asking Vladimir Putin to get into his car and driving him off to the start of the official meeting. All of these little points give us hope that Russia and the United States will be able to start really moving forward and fixing this complicated relationship, which reached one of its lowest points during the previous U.S. administration. Vladimir Putin started his statement during that final media conference by calling Donald Trump his neighbor. Donald Trump said that Vladimir Putin is among the most experienced politicians, and the two have a working relationship. And I think it's true. I wouldn't call this a friendship, but it's definitely a working companionship. And this is what we've seen here today. The Russian president, unexpectedly at the end of his statement, suddenly invited Donald Trump to come and visit Moscow. The US president had quite an interesting reaction to that. He said he's probably going to receive some heat, but he's definitely going to think about it. And I think it's also very important to add that besides Ukraine, the two sides discussed quite a lot of other joint potential projects in business, culture, and in general, they are talking about rebuilding this relationship. And perhaps what we've seen today here in Anchorage is the first real step towards that.
And after the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska, global reactions have been mixed. While European leaders and Zelenskyy see it as a progress, skepticism remains in Ukraine and Russia. Citizens from both sides voice concerns about the lack of clear outcomes, highlighting the ongoing tension and the uncertain path ahead for peace.
After Alaska summit, US President Trump had a lengthy phone call with Ukrainian President Zelenskyy, spoke with NATO leaders and briefed EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European leaders about his discussions in Alaska with Putin. Zelensky called Trump-Putin talks constructive, welcoming Trump's proposal for a trilateral meeting with Ukraine, the US, and Russia. Zelensky will visit the US for talks on Monday, confirmed by Trump on Truth Social. European leaders, including German Chancellor Merz and French President Macron, pledged ongoing support for Ukraine and pressure on Russia. They backed the idea of a three-way summit involving Trump, Zelensky, and European leaders. Macron stressed the importance of continuing to support Ukraine and put pressure on Russia, pledging France's involvement in coalition of the willing to achieve lasting peace with security guarantees. Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico welcomed the Trump-Putin talks, but warned that the European Union's approach may not lead to a quick end to the war.
The coming days will show whether the big players in the Union will support this process and will lead the Ukrainian conflict to a quick end, or whether the unsuccessful European strategy of trying to weaken Russia through this conflict with all kinds of literally incredible financial, political, or military assistance to Kyiv will continue.
India welcomed the Trump-Putin talks, calling them a step forward for peace. The Ministry of External Affairs emphasized the need for dialogue and diplomacy to end the conflict. Ukrainians in Zaporizhzhia expressed skepticism over the Trump-Putin talks, with local chaplain Viktor Tkach and soldiers criticizing the agreements made at the summit.
Putin and Trump made some agreements for their states, for everything to be in their favor. And here, in Zaporizhzhia, we will keep suffering. Glide bombs will keep falling on us.
Putin won. Trump showed his attitude towards him and at the same time towards us. This meeting did not end well for Ukraine, I think.
Moscow residents too expressed doubts about the results of the Putin-Trump talks, noting the lack of clear outcomes.
We are all waiting very much. Of course, we want the situation in the world to stabilize and the situation to become more favorable.
The main thing is that the meeting took place, and in general, everything important apparently progressed as it usually should behind closed door. I hope that all the agreement that have apparently been reached will be reached.
Well, of course, it is very important for us because we already want everyone to live together and peacefully because we live on Crimea. It concerns us like no one else because we cannot safely leave.
The Trump-Putin talks in Alaska have led to mixed reactions. European leaders and India view the discussions as a positive step toward peace, while skepticism remains in Ukraine and Russia. Moving forward, the outcome of the conflict will depend on continued diplomatic efforts and cooperation among global leaders. Mohammad Afzarul Hassan for DD India.
And to talk more about that, to understand the developments between the talks between President Putin and President Trump, and also President Trump's phone call with President Zelensky, I'm joined on the show by Ambassador Manjeev Singh Puri. He's a former senior diplomat, has served as our ambassador in various capacities. Sir, pleasure to have you on the show. Ambassador, what should we make of what transpired today? Both President Trump's talks with President Putin and later his 1.5 hour long phone call with President Zelensky and other European leaders joining in. No clear outcomes, no deal there, but yet the rhetoric at least seems to be toned down.
Absolutely, Amritpal, thank you very much. And for someone who was recently in the northwestern part of the American continent, perhaps you are in the best position to understand whether the ice thawed or not. But let me say what everybody is saying, that President Trump didn't give away anything. So there was nothing about what was talked about, land sharing and so on and so forth, Ukraine having to give up anything. Nothing of that happened. On the other hand, did President Putin not score some diplomatic successes? After all, somebody who's been shunned by the West for more than 10 years, landing on the soil of the United States, being welcomed by the President of the United States, and then and riding in his limousine, etc. So, you know, there are optics and there are various things to it. He didn't agree on a ceasefire, it was not something he wanted to. He proposed this idea of a peace agreement, which is a long-term thing, and, you know, let's see what happens. But I want to make a simple point here. Look, the Europeans and, of course, President Zelensky and the Ukrainians were very worried that President Trump might give them away in a sense. He did. So they have reason to be somewhat assuaged that that didn't happen. President Trump had a long phone call with President Zelenskyy. He's meeting him on Monday. He's also spoken with European leaders. So, in that sense, there isn't much which has been lost on their front, on that side. What's been happening between the United States and Russia is a different matter that, of course, certainly worries the West. But that's a different subject. President Trump is interested in business. The Russians certainly want to reset their relationship, in particular with the United States. So all that is, what should I say? It has lowered the temperature. Let's agree to that. American commentators are saying President Trump hasn't lost, Putin has won. But, that's fine. The important things are that in various ways, things have moved forward on this very intractable situation. And I think that's to be welcomed. And I'm glad that's exactly what the Ministry of External Affairs has said. Amritpal, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Preempt you. Look, one of the great concerns we had was that if things go really bad here, we could have Scott Bessent's dire words coming true, that not only that 25% penalty of China, but much more could get imposed on a country like India, which wants to exert its strategic autonomy and which we've been buying oil from Russia. That hasn't happened. In that sense, the cooling of the temperatures is not a bad idea, and that's why we welcomed it. And that's the way I should say we should look at it. Win, lose in these kind of summits, these things keep happening. There's talk now of a second summit on Russian soil. We'll see what happens.
Yes, I just want to briefly comment on the Indian statement before we go back to what transpired in Alaska today and on that phone call on that Air Force One plane. The Indian statement is very clear that one, it supports the principled stand of which India has been consistently taking, that dialogue and diplomacy is the only way forward, and dialogue and diplomacy are difficult negotiations, but at least that has started. Second, of course, what you said, Ambassador, that if this issue gets resolved, then the whole question of secondary sanctions, etc., goes away. So that it is in the Indian interest, and that's why we see the Indian statement. But going back to the Trump-Putin meeting, both leaders, Ambassador Puri, say called the talks positive. They said, the White House calls great progress, extremely productive meeting, many points were agreed to, yet no formal agreement was reached, no commitments were made. So how should we see this? Should we see this as a first step towards working towards resolving this, or it's just lowering of temperatures? How should we see things where they stand today?
So, Amritpal, let's differentiate ourselves sitting in India from that European-centric thing that this whole business is about Ukraine. Of course, Ukraine is central. That's okay. But I think both President Trump and the President Putin, they perhaps had some other ideas. For President Putin, resetting the relationship, particularly with the United States, economic sanctions, all those matters were important. For President Trump, coming from where he is, business opportunities with Russia,
Exactly. He is saying, I think that video link with Ambassador Puri is frozen for a moment. We'll try and get him back onto this thing. But what he was saying, what Ambassador Puri was saying, that the Europeans have their own interest, but the Americans here have their own interest. President Trump, as the President of the United States, is looking at the American interests of trade with the Russians. So that is also playing out here. For the Europeans, of course, for the Ukrainian security guarantees is one thing, but for the Europeans, the whole question of the Russian advancement into Ukraine is a matter of security. So everybody has their own interests, their own angle in this whole quagmire. I think we've lost the link with Ambassador Manjeev Singh Puri. Let me. Okay, I hear that he's back with us. Ambassador, can you hear me?
Amritpal, I can hear you loud and clear, and you did a great summation of what I was saying.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Please carry on, sir.
Yeah, these are perspectives. So, of course, Ukraine was central. We all agree on that. But as I mentioned, President Putin had some of his own ideas, and those are big ideas. A reset on relations with the United States. As far as President Trump is concerned, coming from where he is, business opportunities beckon. And Russia is a huge economy. Why not do that particularly? So, there are different things. Of course, neither could simply brush aside Ukraine. That's not possible. In fact, President Putin, in his statement, said we have to look after the interests of Russia, and then added, of course, the Ukrainian interest also has to be looked after. And President Trump, certainly over the last several days, was clearly reminded by everyone that, Ukraine is central and you can't sort of, let me say, throw it under the bus. And he didn't do. So the Ukrainians have a reason to feel that, look, whatever were the apprehensions, that didn't happen. That's good. President Trump thinks that he's opened a line to a great power, who thinks is an important issue. There are other issues in Russia. There's this nuclear arms control treaty, which is expiring next year. There are various other issues. But, President Putin certainly has a great interest in somehow or the other trying to reset that relationship with the United States. And, if the United States gets reset, many Europeans will find reason to reset their relationship with the Russians, at least in some kind of a practical form, oil, hydrocarbons exports, overflight. Remember one simple thing. Somebody said that one of the reasons why Alaska was chosen was that the Russians didn't have to overfly any European airspace. Now, whether that would have been a problem is a different matter. But, think about this, the symbolism of Alaska, which used to be Russian territory, the islands of the US and the Russians in that particular sea are barely 2 miles apart. And in fact, the mainlands are only 50 miles. So those symbolisms are apart. There are different, let me say, objectives of different people. All in all, I would say that this isn't a great summit with a tremendous outcome, no. But it's lower temperature. As far as we are concerned, there's some hope on positivity that if something happens, the kinds of things that many people in India were fearing a few weeks and so, that would come down. In various ways, let's also understand that in Ukraine and in other parts, there is a certain degree of tiredness with war. So is it the case with Russia. Can a way forward be found out without compromising territorial integrity, etc.? Is that possible? Looks difficult, but certainly something can be done. A positive step up, I would say.
So what happens next now? What transpires on Monday when President Zelenskyy is there at the Oval Office? What is President Trump going to tell him? Also, the Europeans have called a meeting tomorrow. The French President, the German Chancellor and the UK Prime Minister ahead. In fact, the French presidency said that the coalition of the willing will meet and Europe cannot be left out if any meaningful solution has to be found. So what are the Europeans going to angle at?
Amritpal, first, just look at what everyone was saying before this summit. A summit about the Europeans, and the Europeans are missing. Look at their state of play, the so-called allies of the United States. It's about Ukraine, and the Ukrainians are not at the table. That's what people were saying. Well, at least they got discussed. President Trump has called President Zelenskyy, long phone call. We don't have many details of it other than what he has posted on Truth Social. President Zelenskyy is coming to the White House. I'm sure he will explain to him in detail what happened on the issue of Ukraine during the 2.5-hour, 3-hour meeting that he had with President Putin. Look, I have little doubt that he will also urge him that, look, it's important to enter into some kind of a deal, if I use a word which President Trump likes using, an agreement. That agreement is not an easy one for President Zelenskyy to agree to, because it means territorial concessions, etc. Not very easy to do. It's very easy to talk about them. But can they try and find some kind of practical ways forward? But he will also assure President Zelenskyy that, look, he is not, if I use that colloquial kind of expression, ditching him, throwing him under the bus. No, not at all. He is mindful of the importance of Ukraine, Ukrainian sovereignty, etc. And he's trying to secure what he says is the best deal for them. After all, if I use his expression, thousands are dying. So many Ukrainians have lost their life. And I believe the latest Gallup poll in Ukraine said that more than 66% of the Ukrainians simply want an end to the war. And they are tired. So he will try and stress those particular things, try and tell him, look, I have your back, but be ready to do a deal. That's what he would try and convince them. The Europeans, there would be the other thing that, look, you need to have a deal. It's good for you. If it requires security guarantees, please step up to the table. Please do your bit. You are spending now more on NATO. Please do much more on all of this. So they are calling a meeting of themselves to try and take stock of where the situation is. And then let's see what happens.
Okay. Now all eyes would be on that Monday meeting at the Oval Office. Ambassador Manjeev Singh Puri, thank you so much for lending us your insights. That's all the time I have for. Otherwise, I would love to talk more about it. Thank you for joining in. And the Russian President Vladimir Putin also said that bilateral trade with the United States has grown under Trump administration, describing 20% rise as symbolic. Putin stressed that despite political tensions, Moscow and Washington still have much to offer to each other in business and trade.
Incidentally, when the new administration came to power, bilateral trade started to grow. It's still very symbolic. Still, we have a growth of 20%. As I've said, we have a lot of dimensions for joint work. It is clear that the U.S. and Russian investment and business cooperation has tremendous potential. Russia and the U.S. can offer each other so much in trade, digital, high-tech, and in space exploration. We see that Arctic cooperation is also very possible.
Okay, coming to India now, there is a festival of Janmashmi going on in India, which marks the birth of Lord Krishna. It's being celebrated across the nation today with gaiety and fervor. Devotees are thronging temples to offer prayers to Lord Krishna. The temples in Mathura and Vrindavan, including the Banke Bihari temple, the Prem Mandir, the ISKCON temple, the Shri Krishna Janmashmi temple, which is the birthplace of Lord Krishna, have become special places of attraction for the devotees who are turning out in large numbers to pay obeisance. Lord Krishna is the 8th incarnation of Lord Vishnu as a divine beacon in Hinduism, embodying grace and wisdom. Celebrated on the 8th day of the dark fortnight in the sacred month of Bhadrapada, Krishna Janmashtami radiates with fervor across India and with Hindu communities worldwide. And on the auspicious occasion, Dahi Handi becomes a special point of attraction in Maharashtra. Dahi Handi is a popular and exuberant festival. The term Dahi Handi translates to curd pot, and the festival symbolizes the playful and mischievous nature of Lord Krishna, who is fondly referred to as Makhan Chor, or somebody who stole butter. And my colleague Yogesh Sheetal is joining us from Mumbai on the Dahi Handi celebrations there. Yogesh, if you could, first tell me, show us and tell us what the mood there really is, and as we said, the relevance of Dahi Handi.
See, as far as relevance is concerned, first I'll come to the second part of our question. The relevance of Dahi Handi. Since 1907, Maharashtra, particularly this western state, has witnessed a tremendous color of various, Dahi Handi, not only in Mumbai but also in Thane, Raigad, different pockets of Maharashtra, and the fervor has just gone up day by day, year by year. And this time I'm in Worli. You can see behind me, this is one of the prime, Dahi Handi hubs, like Dadar, like Thane also. So you can see behind me, since morning the celebration is, very electric electrifying, and we have seen all age of people, kids, children also that are, because Dahyandi basically, Dahyandi is a sport, has received a sport status in Maharashtra. So you have to register if any Pathak has to perform in Dahyandi, then they have to register. There are certain guidelines that have been laid down by the state of Maharashtra. Also, the insurance benefits are extended to the mandals. So there are certain rules. Under these rules, these sports are performed. So coming to this particular, today, all different areas we have seen not only the rush management by the Mumbai police, more than 11,000 police personnel are stationed at different venues to ensure there is no concern of safety or security to the mandals. At the same time, the politicians, the businessmen, the celebrities have also showing up, performing their, their shows also to attract and to mix the different fervor in the festival. So currently, the festival is on. You can also see, my camera person can show you that, there is a pot that you can see. Very soon, I think in 10 to 15 minutes now, the festival is almost completed here in Maharashtra. You can see the pot will be broken, which is filled with curd and prize, because the different competitions are also organized today, ranging between 1 lakh to 10 lakh. Various kind of prizes are distributed to the mandals that have successfully achieved the tiers, that have successfully performed, the pyramid, the human pyramid, that is the main attraction of this festival. So currently the festivity forward is on the top, at the top, and the people are also cheering, and they are enjoying the festivity here in Mumbai and also the other pockets of Maharashtra. Back to you.
All right. Yogesh, thank you very much. You enjoy the fervor there. Thank you very much for joining us and showing us the enthusiasm and fervor there in Mumbai. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held talks with South Korean counterpart Cho Hyun in New Delhi on Saturday. The discussions focused on advancing bilateral cooperation in trade, manufacturing, maritime affairs and people-to-people exchanges, as well as new opportunities in artificial intelligence, semiconductors, clean energy and defense. Dr. Jaishankar thanked South Korea for its condemnation of the terror attack in Pahalgam in Jammu and Kashmir.
I also want to express our gratitude for the ROK's condemnation of the terrorist attack which took place in Pahalgam on 22nd of April, and the fact that when our parliamentary delegation went to Seoul, I think they got very good meetings. You yourself made an effort to meet them. It's something which we appreciate.
And the South Korean foreign minister said that his country is firmly committed to strengthening ties with India.
Minister, President Lee Jae-myung of our country is firmly committed to strengthening ties with your great country. This was emphasized, as you said, during the summit in Canada, and he personally asked me to convey the best regards to Prime Minister Modi ji.
Devastating weather events continue to unfold around the world, from floods in Pakistan and Nigeria to wildfires in Spain and Portugal. The global climate crisis is wreaking havoc on communities, displacing millions and claiming lives. More in this report.
Across the globe, catastrophic weather events are wreaking havoc, leaving communities devastated and governments scrambling for solutions. From catastrophic floods to out-of-control wildfires, the impact of extreme weather is more apparent than ever. In Spain, scorching temperatures have ignited devastating wildfires, threatening lives and wildlife. Firefighters are battling blazes in several regions, with residents evacuating their homes to escape the flames. Galicia has become one of the most affected regions. All of Spain is on heatwave alert.
The terrain here is extremely steep, sloped and rocky, making ground operations nearly impossible, so we rely almost entirely on air support. The winds keep changing, making the fires likely to reignite. As a result, the situation has not improved yet. While some areas have been contained, others fires continue to burn.
Neighboring Portugal is also struggling with fierce wildfires. country suffered its first death on Friday. Portugal's president held meeting with the National Emergency and Civil Protection Authority. Portugal, like Spain, has invoked the EU's civil protection mechanism to ask for help, requesting 4 firefighting aircraft to use until Monday. On the other hand, more than 300 people died in Pakistan due to devastating flash flood triggered by the monsoon rains. Unprecedented monsoon led to severe flooding, displacing millions and leaving thousands stranded. Deputy Prime Minister Ishaq Dar said that authorities were carrying out rescue and relief operations. In Nigeria, torrential rains sparked intense floods and damaged hundreds of homes in the Potiskum town. As these devastating events unfold in Pakistan, Nigeria, Spain, and Portugal, the global community is reminded of the increasing frequency of climate-induced disasters. Experts warn that the world must accelerate its effort to mitigate climate change, adapt to new weather realities, and provide aid to the affected regions. Bureau Report, TT India.
On 15th August, in his address to the 79th Independence Day, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi reiterated that instead of focusing on others' limitations, India must extend its own line of progress. In a world of rising economic self-interest, the focus must be on strengthening India's capabilities, expanding opportunities and empowering the citizens. These reforms mark the beginning of an accelerated phase of governance transformation, ensuring India is more resilient, inclusive and globally competitive. Take a look at this report.
On the 79th Independence Day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi underscored Atmanirbhar Bharat as one of the key foundational planks for Viksit Bharat, citing India's advances in defense, technology, energy, space and manufacturing. Some of the announcements include India will launch Made in India semiconductor chips by the end of 2025, reflecting the nation's growing strength in critical technology sectors. He emphasized innovation in AI, cybersecurity, deep tech, and operating systems for global competitiveness. Celebrating the remarkable achievements of Group Captain Subhanshu Shukla, Prime Minister Modi announced ambitious plans for India's very own space station, signaling a new era of indigenous space capabilities. He highlighted that over 300 startups are actively innovating in satellites, exploration, and cutting-edge space technologies, ensuring that India is not just participating but leading globally in space science exploration. Prime Minister stressed on the importance of energy independence, adding that for the bright future of youth and welfare of farmers, energy independence will be ensured. He declared that while the world debates global warming, India has resolved to achieve 50% clean energy by 2030, but thanks to the commitment of our people, the goal was met by 2025. Solar, nuclear, hydro, and hydrogen energy have been advanced, marking a decisive step towards energy independence. Prime Minister highlighted India's focus on expanding nuclear energy through private sector participation. He noted that 10 new nuclear reactors are currently operational and emphasized by India's 100th year of independence. The nation aims to increase its nuclear energy capacity tenfold, strengthening energy, self-reliance and supporting sustainable growth. PM announced the introduction of next-generation GST reforms by this Diwali, aimed at reducing taxes on daily use items. The government will bring next-generation GST reforms, which will bring down tax burden on the common man. It will be a Diwali gift, he said, ensuring that these reforms directly benefit citizens and stimulate economic activity. To strengthen India's demographic dividend and ensure the nation's youth play a central role in its growth, Prime Minister launched PM Viksit Bharat Rozgar Yojana, Rs 1 lakh crore employment scheme, under which newly employed youth will receive 15,000 rupees, targeting 3 crore young Indians. He emphasized that this initiative will transform India's demographic potential into real economic and social prosperity, strengthening the bridge from Swatantra Bharat to Samriddh Bharat and empowering the youth to actively contribute to the nation's progress and development. To strengthen India's offensive and deterrent capabilities, Prime Minister launched Mission Sudarshan Chakra, drawing inspiration from India's rich cultural and mythological heritage. He said, India is launching the mission to create a powerful weapon system to thwart any attempt by enemies to attack us. The initiative is designed to enhance rapid, precise, and powerful defense responses, reinforcing India's strategic autonomy. Prime Minister Modi added all public places will be covered by an expanded nationwide security shield by 2035, ensuring comprehensive protection for the nation while showcasing India's commitment to self-reliance in defense.
And to talk more about what should we make of the Prime Minister's address and the key announcements that he made at the Red Fort yesterday during his Independence Day address, I'm joined by Dr. Amit Kapoor. He's a senior economist. Thank you, Dr. Kapoor, for being on the show. What was the central message that the Prime Minister was trying to convey through the various announcements that he made yesterday, be it on semiconductors, be on increasing nuclear energy capacity or GST reforms, etc.?
So I think there's a very implicit understanding that has been drawn, given the kind of conditions that have developed in the world in the last few weeks. And what the Honorable Prime Minister has said is that, one, if you really want to talk about competitiveness of India, then competitiveness of India has to be driven on its own strengths. And when we say it has to be driven by its own strengths, there's a very far deep meaning to it in terms of saying wherever we have our capacity and capability, we should exploit it. And in terms of that, I think the biggest point that he made was demographics. Because when you talk about competitiveness, it is about land, labor, and capital. And he says that if India wants to push forward, then it has to be the demographic dividend that has to be utilized to the fullest. And for that, he has made announcements. So there were some kind of initiatives. And of course, we have been talking about it. It was more about the Rozgar Yojana, which is a very, very powerful mechanism to making sure that the job creation happens. The second thing that comes out very strongly is that you have to have self-reliance in certain key sectors. So there are those very critical sectors wherein the government has said that we should look at, or where the Honorable Prime Minister has said we should look at our self-reliance. So that is when you talk about semiconductors. The next set of competitive advantages or the issues that are going to emerge across economies is going to be that who controls technologies. So we cannot have over-reliance on certain set of technologies from the outside world. So yes, semiconductors becomes very important. Defense is another thing that he really did talk about and emphasize about. And given the kind of conditions that we have seen in the last 6 months, we have had a war with Pakistan. And it was not a minor skirmish. It effectively became a full-blown 4-day catastrophic situation. So, but then I think managed very well. But it does tell us that we need to protect ourselves from an enemy which is very, very caustic. So that also has an economic thing. And the third factor, and you do say that in your report as well, that economic development cannot just be looked in isolation. It has to be looked at from the perspective of social progress as well. So what does social progress mean? That you have to talk about education, investment in areas thereof. And he's also talked about the future generation of reforms. And everybody across the board, any economist that you were talking to or any person in the country, they were saying that we need to have a rationalization of the GST. And he's already announced that the rationalization of GST is going to happen. So there are just going to be 2 slabs from a very complicated, complex structure. You're moving to a 2-tier approach that is going to happen. And that is really going to make things a lot easier. So what you're doing is that you're effectively unburdening the enterprises. You're unburdening, or what you call as the regulatory cholesterol is effectively getting reduced by these kind of initiatives. So and I think you did not allude to the fact, but what the Honorable Prime Minister said, our next generation of things has to be about quality, 0 defects. So cost competitiveness and quality is also something that he said, and which I feel is a very, very important thing. The last time when a country invoked something like this, it was Japan, which said we need to talk about quality and cost. And that's about 50 years back. And look what Japan was able to do. If we are able to even do, say, 20 or 30% of what Japan was able to do, we are going to be achieving wonders over a period of time.
True. And, I want to pick up that point of self-reliance where he says that he made a dramatic announcement yesterday in his speech where he says that the way we made our vaccines during COVID, UPI for digital payments, we should build our own jet engines We don't produce jet engines today. We're trying to do Tejas and all, but then again, with the French help, he asked us scientists and youth to take it up as a direct challenge. And he cited how in Op Sindoor, you used indigenous technologies to gain some kind of dominance over your enemy. But if you want to be, if you want to be a developed nation by 2047, you really need to have self-reliance, be it in the economic sphere, be it in energy independence or defense technologies and equipment.
Also, I think so. And there is a prime example that India has also done it earlier. It's not something that we cannot do. So what he's saying is that we need to take one step forward. We need to become more reliant or self-reliant in agriculture, improve our productivity. He, in fact, did say that. The second thing is in terms of, say, improving reliance in certain sectors, which are core sectors for an economy. Like you cannot outsource defense to the greatest possible extent. So we need to become self-reliant. And when you say doing this also has a huge effect from an economic development perspective. Because if you're able to create those ecosystems, in terms of saying that if I'm able to create an ecosystem for defense, that means you're look at the number of enterprises which will happen. There could be large enterprises, but there would be small, allied, medium and small enterprises that will emerge, which will create that cluster of defense. And then the number of jobs that get created. So I always say that, there is that direct, indirect and induced impact of these actions. This is going to be far bigger than what we are even anticipating now. So you have to create that perspective. So he's saying various sectors. So when he also said Indian youth should create their own platforms, like say social media platforms. If we are able to do that, if we are able to create our own softwares, why not? It is time that we do it, because that has been one of the things which India has been missing. And that's a visionary statement. I think it had to come from somebody like the Prime Minister to tell the people that, we have to go into that direction. It inspires the people to really take those steps. And he's also effectively signaling that you need to reduce the regulatory cholesterol. I think it's a given thing. What we are seeing now is going to be a very watershed moment in India. And as I anticipated, when I say watershed in terms of how the next generation of reforms is going to be happening. We've had some tremendous reforms since 2014, but I think this is time when we can really go back to the drawing board. And this is exactly what the Honorable Prime Minister is doing, and saying that let's open up, let's become more reliant, let the world see what the power of India is and how the world can actually, or how we can create dependence of the world on us, rather than we becoming dependent on the world. And that's what he said on energy as well. We need to be energy independent. We need to protect ourselves. So when he's saying that let's go to green energy, that means we are going to have reliance on energy. We will require less oil over a period of time. And that's a very positive step.
True, very true. Dr. Kapoor, now that's great vision to have, but now the challenge really is to implement it and see that it gets effectively implemented. That's all the time I have for. Thank you very much, Dr. Kapoor, for joining us on the show. Thank you. The Indian Business and Professional Council, operating under the Dubai Chamber of Commerce, celebrated India's 79th Independence Day with grandeur at the Grand Hyatt in Dubai. The event brought together 450 diplomats, business leaders and professionals in an evening that showcased Indian culture while unveiling new initiatives to strengthen India-UAE ties. The evening featured tricolor themed decor, regional dance performances and Indian street food stalls. The Minister of State for Foreign Trade and for the UAE, Dr. Thani bin Ahmed Al Saudi, who was the chief guest, highlighted India's growing global stature and the strength of bilateral ties. The CG of the Consul General of India in Dubai, Satish Kumar Sewan, praised IBPC's two-decade-long role in uniting business and professional communities. Motorsport champion and the first Indian woman to win a national motorsports title, Diana Pundole, also inspired the gathering with her journey. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate two major national highway projects worth nearly 11,000 crore rupees in Delhi on Sunday. The projects include the Delhi section of the Dwarka Expressway and the Alipur Dichgaon Kalan stretch of the Urban Extension Road 2. Both initiatives are part of the government's broader plan to decongest the capital, enhance multimodal connectivity and reduce travel time across the national capital region. Still to come up on DD India NewsHour, the festival of Janamashmi is celebrated across the globe. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Amritpal Singh. Bhagwan Krishna's phenomenon unites hearts across the globe and for devotees everywhere. Krishna's message of love, faith and dharma transcends boundaries. Let's take a look at Janamashmi celebrations from Wellington in New Zealand.
From the banks of Yamuna to the shores of New Zealand, Krishna's birthday is celebrated with the same joy and devotion globally. The diaspora gathers for Janmashmi here tonight. Let's take a look. Janmashtami truly isn't just a festival, but a celebration of devotion, music and dance, and the timeless stories of Krishna's Leelas. Today, devotees relive that divine joy as they partook in the Mahabhishek ceremony of Sri Sri Radha Shyamasundar, followed by fascinating performances. Prabhuji, welcome to DD India and Hare Krishna, Happy Janmashtami. Firstly, tell us what does celebrating Janmashtami here in New Zealand mean for you and for the wider community here?
Happy Janmashtami to everyone on DD India. Janmashtami in New Zealand, Wellington here, our center is called ISKCON Center for Culture and Education. So as you all know, and all the Indians, they carry Bharat or India in their heart wherever they go. And wherever they go, they actually take their culture with them. And Janmashtami is such an opportunity to actually come together and celebrate the appearance day of Lord Shri Krishna. It is also part of the devotion, bhakti, yoga, that celebrating Janmashtami is considered one of the topmost way of celebrating and worshipping the Supreme Lord and express our devotion to the Supreme. And as you could see, outside there are at least 500 devotees, and we had to always ask them that more people want to come, but we had to ask them that, oh, the hall capacity is limited, so please, now we can only have these many. So everyone wants to actually come together. Whenever there is Krishna present, Krishna is all attractive and he attracts everyone there.
Hare Krishna. As the chants of Hare Krishna echo here in New Zealand, we are reminded that our traditions travel across oceans, but the spirit stays rooted. This is Soumya Sharma from Wellington for DD India.
And in Netherlands, the Hindu community gathered in Eindhoven to celebrate the Janamashmi. Our correspondent was there to capture the color, the music and the meaning of this joyful tradition.
Today, the Hindu community here in Eindhoven is celebrating Janmashtami, the birthday of Lord Krishna, one of the most beloved figures in Hinduism.
First of all, Hare Krishna. So today, it's a festival called Janmashtami, where we celebrate the birth of Lord Krishna.
It's a day filled with color, music, dance and storytelling. Families come together, children are dressed as little Krishna, and songs are sung about his adventures. In India, this festival draws millions of visitors, but here in the Netherlands, it is also an important way to keep culture and traditions alive.
We are so busy in our day-to-day work, so it's good to meet with friends and with family and have some nice food and just enjoy the moment, basically. So it's very special to me, yes.
Whether it's about faith, community, or simply the joy of celebration, this festival brings people together in a very special way. Mark Limburg reporting from Eindhoven, the Netherlands, for DD India.
And in the Indonesian capital of Jakarta, devotees came together to celebrate the festival of Janamashmi. The devotees expressed their love for Lord Krishna by offering prayers and reciting devotional songs.
This mandir in North Jakarta was transformed into a center of festivity with colorful flowers and lights, setting the stage for an evening of devotion and joy. Krishna Janmasmi celebrations here begin with music and chanting, ringing through the temple halls. For the devotees here, the festival is not just about rituals. It also brings families, friends, and children together under one roof to celebrate their culture far from home. Those celebrating in Jakarta say that this is more than just a religious festival. It feels like a reminder of home and a celebration that unites generations of families.
Yeah, it's very pleasant to have a celebration like out of India and such a big celebration here. I'm very pleased, we are happy to hear. It's a vibes from inside that we are getting the same vibes. Whenever we came to temple, the same vibes like India and Indonesia.
The gathering bringing everyone here reflects the universal appeal of Krishna's teachings about love, compassion, and righteousness. Some living away from Jakarta also came to this temple to mark Janmashmi together with the community.
Very nice. We have a nice chance to celebrate here. It's far away from our home country. Actually, we are from Nepal. And actually, we are not here nearby. We are coming a little bit far away, around 60 kilometers far away. And it's really very good vibe. Actually, here community gathering is here. Yeah, so togetherness is there. We are from different places of the world, but here this is the place where we combine each other. So community-wise is very good here.
Offerings of flowers, sweets, and prayers fill the altar, while bells and bhajans mark the moments of celebration. At this mandir in Jakarta, the atmosphere is so vibrant and electric. The Janmashmi festival has brought together hundreds of devotees. And as midnight approaches, the anticipation is just growing. That is the moment symbolizing the birth of Lord Krishna. This is Chani Vasandani in Jakarta for DD India.
And the Hindu community across Bangladesh celebrated Janamashmi with religious fervor, marking the birth of Lord Sri Krishna, one of the most revered deities in Hinduism. Devotees in the various parts of Bangladesh, including capital Dhaka, took out colorful processions, chanted devotional hymns, and participated in prayers to commemorate the auspicious day. Let's now take a look at some sports news. Two-time Olympic medalist Manu Bhaker will lead India's charge at the Asian Shooting Championship in Kazakhstan. Bhaker will compete in both the women's 10-meter air pistol and the 25-meter air pistol events. Over 700 shooters from 28 countries will compete in Kazakhstan. India sent the largest contingent, comprising of 164 shooters for seniors and juniors events. The Indian senior shooting squad consists of 35 members who will compete for medals in 15 events. The medal events begin on Monday. Indian Grandmaster Divya Deshmukh is set to compete in the open section of the FIDE Grand Swiss 2025, scheduled to be held in Uzbekistan from the 3rd to the 15th of September. The 19-year-old confirmed her wildcard entry through social media. The open field promises fierce competition featuring some of the strongest names in chess. Grandmaster Arjun Erigaisi, the world champion D. Gukesh, and are seeded as the top two, while R. Pragnananda and Nehal Serene also feature in the top 20. Alongside Divya, Russian star Alexandra Goryachkina has opted to participate in the open category rather than the women's event. Indian shuttler Tanya Hemant has won the women's singles title at Saipan International Badminton Tournament in the Northern Mariana Islands on Saturday. 21-year-old Hemant outplayed Japan's Kane Sakai 15-10, 15-8 in the final. In this tournament, each game is played over 15 points instead of the conventional 21. This was her fourth international title. She won the India International Tournament in 2022 at Iran Fajr International, in 2023 at the Bendigo International in 2024. That's it then in this edition of DD India NewsHour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. To those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on your screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Amrit Pal Singh from my entire team here in Delhi. Thank you for watching DD India NewsHour. Bye-bye.